Good afternoon and welcome to the February 2021 DIBBLE webinar, Preventing Dating Violence by Helping Students Choose Healthy Relationships and to Build Social and Emotional Skills. It's quite a mouthful and it's going to be a great presentation. We're privileged to have two practitioners from the Dallas area talk about their experience in doing prevention education, violence prevention education through education in the schools and healthy relationship education. So as we begin, I would appreciate each of you going over to your control panel. And if this is your very first webinar with DIBBLE, sure you've been on a zillion other webinars, but a DIBBLE webinar, please raise your hand if this is your first DIBBLE webinar. Let's see how many are.
Looks like about 24%.
24%. That's Rebecca speaking. Rebecca's an engineer. Hi, Rebecca.
Hello.
And to the 24% of you who are brand new to DIBBLE, we welcome you. And to the 75% of you who are so smart to come back, we welcome you as well. So thank you so much for attending today. February is Dating Violence Prevention Month, and we thought this was a really timely topic because of that and for so many other reasons. So in your email that you got with the link to this webinar, there is a phone number that you can call into should you lose your audio through your computer. So please just refer to that for any information. We will have some polls during the, and you'll see those, they'll pop up on the screen. And also we have a question box and people are already filling that up. So I'm the question person, so that's why we haven't gotten back to you. So once I'm off my introductions, I'll work on your questions. So let's, so we can put down your hands and let's go to the next slide. So those of you who are new to us should get to meet some of my favorite people, who are Charlie and Helen DIBBLE, who founded the DIBBLE Institute. That's how we're named. And so we give them tribute for having such great ideas. And Charlie's idea was really to take research and translate it into practice, around helping young people learn healthy relationship skills. So DIBBLE is not a direct service provider. What we do is we package research in practical, engaging, fun teaching tools, and we make that available to others to go out and do the good work. So it was a brilliant concept at the time, which would have been 30 years ago almost, and it's still a brilliant idea that we have. So today, Rebecca, so today the DIBBLE Institute is quite large in terms of our coverage area. We have people using our materials in all 50 states and multiple territories and several countries. And they use them for a variety of reasons: pregnancy prevention, mental health, violence prevention, employability skills. We're learning from our research that these are all things can be impacted when young people learn how to navigate their love lives. The last year we counted, in this last year, we reached 67,000 youth or more. That's a very conservative estimate. And we could only do that, really, for sure, only do that thanks to all of you who make this work possible. So thank you for that. So let me go over some core values with you of the DIBBLE Institute. And we think about these all the time. If you forward a little bit there. The first is, as I said before, we believe in research. We're big on research. And just as we've seen in this COVID, how shall I call it, experiment we're all in, science changes. You think, maybe masks aren't important, and then you go a little further and then you think, oh yeah, they're super important. And in fact, where to now? And so that didn't mean that those people were wrong at the time. It just means that they didn't have as much information. And the same with relationships. There's some things we learn about relationships that we think are true at one point in time, and then further research, further refinement says that no, that's not exactly right. Let's move in this. Let's try to be really stick with the research. So all of our materials and what Jeff and Tiffany will be talking to you today about includes that whole aspect of using evidence-based evaluated program. It's so reassuring if you're in the field to know that you're using something really solid. Our second point here is that our materials are very inclusive. Rebecca, the next slide. Oh, did we miss one? Okay, well, I'll just say they're very inclusive. We write them so that as many young people as we can feel included. And so whether that's by sexual orientation, gender identity, there we go. We aim to make young people feel included. So our scenarios are inclusive, our examples are inclusive. We never assume the gender of your partner. You know, we are talking about romantic relationships and it can be sensitive. So we try to be super sensitive. I'm also pleased to let you know and announce, I guess, officially, that our materials have just been added to the National Accessibility Network, Teaching Accessibility Network, which means that if you're reaching young people who are hearing impaired or have vision issues, you can go into that network called NIMAC, and our student materials come out in a way that you can use with your young people. So we're super inclusive. We're super glad to be that inclusive. And so we just think everybody needs to be treated with respect, and all relationships can get better with relationship skills. And finally, we're big fans of safe, healthy, and stable families. And this means really an absence of violence. And that's why this is so important today that we're talking about this, because it's not that people should stay together for the kids, but be throwing pots and pans around. Really, we need to have, kids need safety, stability, and healthy family lives to grow up healthy and safe and stable themselves. And that means that what Jeff and Tiffany are doing is so important because they're working on the preventative side. And we can work so effectively through schools to reach so many youth before they need it. It's just astonishing. The research on materials show that when you teach young people to be smart about their love lives, that violence does decrease without being a quote unquote violence prevention program, because you're helping people build the positive, to work on assets, to move forward. So it's with that in mind that I want to introduce Tiffany and Jeff. As I say, they're both with a group called Women in Need. They're based out of the greater Dallas area. They'll tell you more about, they cover multiple counties, and they work for an organization that goes into schools to do violence prevention education. Tiffany, favorite fun fact about Tiffany is she was trained in family and consumer sciences, and that's one of my favorite specialties, because I think family and consumer sciences, their foundational knowledge is amazing, and we should really do a lot more to wrap our arms around that profession. They can do such good work with young people. Jeff grew up in Dallas. He can regale you with stories about his large family. He's adopted some children, he has children of his own, and he has just a huge heart. So he's been serving in Women in Need since 2019, and since then, it's been a delight for me to work with him. So with that, let's introduce, welcome Jeff and Tiffany.
Good afternoon, Kay. Good afternoon to all of our webinar participants today. We are so grateful for the opportunity to be able to spend this time with you, to be able to share some information about our organization and the work that we have been able to do in the realm of prevention education, specifically focused on school classrooms, and just excited to also partner with you as we think about the idea of evaluating the curriculum that we use as well too. So we are interested in hearing some of your insights. Let me also mention as well too that Tiffany is the person when I first got started with Women in Need that trained me in the work of prevention education. And so let me give my kudos to Tiffany for all of her effort in getting me to where I am today. Certainly in this field, we stand upon the shoulders of those who have gone before us, and we're happy to link arms with those that have been doing this work longer than we have, so we can, in a sense, learn the tricks of the trade. And so it really is a privilege and delight for me to work with Tiffany and to be able to share this time with her as well too. Tiffany, maybe I'll give you a moment if you want to greet everybody that's on today's webinar.
Yes, hello and welcome. What an absolute honor and privilege to spend the next few minutes just sharing one of my passions, and that is being on what I would consider to be the front lines of creating change for relationships, healthy relationships moving forward. And like to just echo Kay, you know, it really does start with young people and helping them to recognize this. So super passionate about this topic, and Jeff, just super excited to talk through this today with you. So welcome everyone. Hello.
Okay, Rebecca, if we could advance to the next slide. What we'd like to be able to do is to cover the objectives for today's meeting. Before I run through those objectives, I believe, Rebecca, that we do have a poll question that can be put up at this point so we can understand the realms or the areas of work that our participants are engaged in at present. So the question is, what is the particular focus of the work that you do? And we'll take a few moments here to allow you to select the one that applies to you. Okay, Rebecca, thank you for sharing those results with us. So just looking at the numbers here, looks like we certainly have quite a few folks that are in the realm of prevention education, whether program management or education staff. We certainly love our direct client services folks as well too. So we'll share a little bit about what we're doing along the lines of direct client services and as an organization, and looks like other as well too. So it looks like some medical people as well too, maybe some legal service providers. So thank you so much for being willing to let us know more about you and who is on this webinar today. So what we're hoping to cover today is just a brief history on our organization, Women in Need, and then talk about some of the things that have been done to develop the prevention curriculum that we use for teen dating violence with high school students. We also want to cover the process that we went through to add to the curriculum that we use, social and emotional learning curriculum for middle school students. One of the joys that has been for us is to use love notes to be able to inform some of the activities and the content that we use in our presentations, but also want to share with you how love notes has been super helpful for us in working with at-risk teens that we serve. And then what we would like to do is end up our time and just thinking about the work that we do in terms of the work that Tiffany and I do for our organization in curriculum evaluation and modification. And again, use that as an opportunity to hear from some of you as to what that looks like for those of you that are involved in prevention education, program management, those of you that are staff members that are providing that prevention education in the classroom as well too. So I think, Rebecca, we can go ahead and advance to the next slide. So a little bit of a history on our organization. We began back in 1980 with a group of concerned citizens in Greenville, Texas. We're just to the east of the Dallas Metroplex. The citizens that made up that group of concerned citizens, we had social workers, police personnel, business owners, clergy members who recognized the lack of resources for family violence in the Hunt County area. A campaign was begun to raise funds for a family violence shelter so that we could begin to provide shelter and services to victims of family violence. When we moved into the 1990s, so Rebecca, I think we could probably advance to what happened in the 90s. We did pick up some additional funding, some United Way funding. Since that time, we've expanded our resources with grant funding from the state of Texas, from local partners as well too. We also opened our first My Sister's Closet store, and so one of the exciting parts about our organization is we offer 4 resale shops in the area. Victims of family violence receive vouchers from our legal advocates to obtain items in these stores for free. So as you can imagine, as an individual maybe with children fleeing a dangerous situation may not be able to take very much with him or her, and so those stores provide us an opportunity to provide those much needed items to victims. Of course, they're open for members of the community to shop there as well too, and so again, the proceeds go to help us do the work that we do. Once we moved into the 2000s, we were able to move into a new shelter facility. We added some more My Sister's Closet stores. Rebecca, I think we can go ahead and advance to the next section on this slide. And then we began to extend our services to another county, into Rockwall County, which is where I primarily serve in prevention education. Tiffany primarily serves in Hunt County, where Greenville is located. Then just moving into this most recent decade, the 2010s, we began to provide relationship education and awareness to 3 counties, Hunt County, Rains County, and Rockwall County. Interestingly enough, Hunt County is the largest county in terms of square miles in the state of Texas. Rockwall is the smallest county, and so kind of an interesting mix of counties that we serve in the state of Texas. And so again, today we provide shelter to victims of family violence. We offer legal advocacy, helping victims to navigate the legal system, to understand the supports and the assistance available to them. We offer support groups for victims of family violence. We have a 24-hour-day, 7-day-a-week hotline. So we're always just a phone call or a text message away to provide resources. And again, Tiffany and I just enjoy the opportunity we have to be in the school classroom, providing curriculum presentations about teen dating violence, helping students to choose happy, healthy, successful relationships and avoid those relationships in which they might be harmed or injured in some way. So what I'd like to do, Rebecca, I think we can go ahead and advance to the next slide. We've got another poll question that we would like to put up at this point. As we begin to talk about what we've done with curriculum as an organization, what we use in the classroom, we would just love to hear from you. Would you say that for those of you that are involved in prevention, education management, or program staff, are you using a published curriculum? So for example, thinking about love notes from the Dibble Institute, or do you use materials that you prepare yourself? Maybe it's a situation where a school contacts you and asks you to present on a particular topic, and maybe you're preparing just for that particular topic. So just curious where our participants are when it comes to the utilization of an already established curriculum, or if you're developing your own materials. Okay, all right, so looks like more of us are using a published curriculum. Looks like some of you are preparing your own materials. Really for us, in the work that we've been doing in prevention education, we kind of have a mix of both and. So what we'd like to do is just kind of talk through the development of our curriculum for teen dating violence for high school students, and then I'm going to hand things over to Tiffany, and she's going to go into some detail about what those presentations in terms of the content that we share with students. So as you can see on the screen, when it comes to the development of the curriculum that we use, that there have been multiple individuals, organizations involved in helping us develop what we have up to this point. So don't think that we forgot about the Dibble Institute or Love Notes. That's coming in just a moment, so hang on for that. But really where it began for us in terms of the curriculum that we used, or that we continue to use, it really began as a local project. So we had some concerned individuals about providing education in the classroom. There were some initial thoughts from a curriculum called Expect, Respect. Those thoughts then were developed into a 5-day or a 5-lesson curriculum. For those 5 days or for those 5 lessons, worksheets were developed for each of those lessons to be used as a guide in the classroom to be able to direct those conversations. Those worksheets consist of kind of some initial questions to provoke thinking and discussion on that particular topic, a main content focus. We provide a kind of a summary of the main point towards the end, and then an opportunity on that worksheet for more in-depth reflection on the part of the students involved in those conversations. Eventually, what we did then is we added PowerPoint presentations for those curriculum presentations that we gave. So utilizing both the PowerPoint presentation and a worksheet as well too. And of course, one of the things we love about the worksheets, Tiffany will share a little bit more about those resources, and I will as well too. But it just gives the students a take-home thing for them. And so we'll talk about what we the trusted adult connection that we use, that we the idea that we developed from Love Notes, or I should say borrowed from Love Notes. And so we'll go into more of that in just a moment. One of the things we also love to do as well too is we love to use candy for engagement. Sometimes students are a little bit reticent to engage in conversations, but as soon as Tiffany and I pull out the basket of candy that we encourage students to say, hey, listen, if you participate, if you answer questions, engage in activities, we'd love to give you a little bit of a sugar rush. We'd love to let you have some candy. It seems that as soon as that happens, the basket of candy comes out, hands pop up in the air, people want to share, people want to start talking. And so that's really been an effective way for us to engage students. So with that being said, what I'd like to do then is hand things over to Tiffany at this point, and she will just walk us through the main areas of focus for each of those 5 lessons that we offer in teen dating violence. So Rebecca, we can advance to the next slide.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. Great introduction. And yeah, we just want to kind of give you a quick overview of some of the core concepts that we really feel like are important in the curriculum that we provide. And really what it boils down to is starting these conversations, getting these kids really thinking in terms of their own dating relationships and personal experiences. And so day 1, what we do is come in and try to lay some groundwork. One of the things I love about the worksheets that we use is we have the section at the front end, which Jeff mentioned, is really kind of a collective conversation. We ask some questions that get the students thinking. We engage them in some activities that start us off into a direction. And so on day 1, we're really talking about dating versus being in a more serious committed relationship. And the idea of do the students really know the difference? Are they being mindful about how they enter into relationship, and what does that look like? And so one of the key things we like to point out on day 1 is to really take things slow. And we illustrate this through many different activities that we do. Another thing about our worksheets is that in the middle portion, we have a buzz section where we allow the students to really think for themselves. Based on their personal experiences, based on their opinions, we ask them to answer some questions that we come back to the entire class, share those opinions. And so it's really neat to build that rapport on day 1, really create some foundational work that we can build from in thinking in terms of, you know, how do we keep things moving slowly? How do we really give a person time to show us who they are? And so we talk a lot about the dating timeline and communication, how that plays a part in this getting to know you process. So that's a little bit about day 1. So if we want to go ahead and move to day 2, I'll kind of share with you what we go into next. This is one of, I think it's one of the most important days for me. This is where I think the light bulb starts to come on for students. I think that we begin to see them with Red Flag Day really start to maybe reflect on some things that they've seen maybe in a friend's relationship, or it could be coming from their own personal experience. You know, another thing that we see a lot and oftentimes is unfortunately maybe they're being modeled relationship situations at home that may not be ideal. And so there's a lot of these different areas that these students are pulling from, but we get to engage in some great conversations. We really try to bring up on Red Flag Day, day 2, 4 main red flags that we see that oftentimes, especially students at the high school level, may miss, or they may begin to consider these red flags to be what love looks and feels like. And so we talk about manipulation, we talk about isolation from friends and family, we talk about extreme forms of jealousy and control. And so how these things can kind of be misinterpreted. And so this is a really critical day in my opinion. And it's just a fun way that we try to engage. We use some video content where we're gonna kind of touch on that a little bit more later on. But the video content is really, really great. We do this throughout our programming during the week. Just another great way to engage and bring these concepts to life. So we can go ahead and move on to day 3, Rebecca. Thank you so much. And so on day 3, we're going to discuss the different types of abuse. You know, unfortunately, some students may have, you know, a skewed idea that abuse is only physical abuse. And although we know that those statistics are very high, physical abuse can occur in teen dating violence or in teen dating relationships. The other types of abuse are actually more common. And I think this is, again, where the students begin to really reflect. We really highlight 4 different types of abuse: physical, sexual, mental, emotional, and verbal abuse. And we really kind of dive deep with the students to be able to recognize and provide examples that really we ask the students to come up with. And so it's a great dialogue back and forth. Yeah, so day 3 is critical as well. And so if we want to move on to day 4. So day 4, we talk a lot about breakups. And so with day 4, we want to make sure that students have this healthy idea that it's okay to break up, that ending relationships is a normal part of their experience, especially as young adults experimenting in relationships. So we talk a lot about, healthy versus unhealthy throughout the week. We try to engage that into each and every one of our conversations. Not only all the unhealthy things, but what are the healthy components? And we do the same when it comes to breakups. So we talk about the idea that the breaks up are just a part of the process. But we as well go into the fact that if you were to find yourself in a toxic situation, or you did find a partner who was exhibiting some of these red flag behaviors or even abusive behaviors, how can we keep these students safe? How can we provide them with some additional resources that helps them to see and know ways that they might need to protect themselves when exiting a relationship? And so each and every day we try to offer different resources. Maybe there's a friend that might be concerned about another friend in an unhealthy relationship. So we offer tips and ways to engage in those conversations, help get yourself or maybe a friend out of a situation that could potentially become dangerous, and also normalize the process that ending relationships is okay. And so we do talk a lot about breakups on day 4. And then day 5 is my favorite. Day 5 is the day where we really get to go into, teens these days, quote unquote, relationship goals, right? So if we were to use the hashtag, what people think about in terms of relationship goals at a high school level. And so we dive deep into allowing the students on the worksheets on day 5 to just really consider what for them would be a great relationship. What are they looking for? Things that they might desire to have in common with a partner, things that are really deal breakers for them, and things that they should stand for when it comes to a healthy relationship. And so for me, I feel as though a healthy relationship for these young adults starts with a healthy version of themselves. And so we also do a great exercise on Friday that it was kind of my heart to develop. When I came on board, we had kind of the bones of some of these curriculums, and then we brought in a bracelet. And so we're going to talk just a bit about that. But this bracelet became an affirmation for these students. And Rebecca, if you want to go to the next slide, I'll go ahead and show you an example of what it is that we're talking about. And so if you'll notice, each and every one of these bracelets, they have amazing affirmations. I am strong. I am beautiful, I am awesome, I have value. So these are some really powerful affirmations that we try to leave students with on a high note at the end of the week. We try to remind them of their worth and that they are deserving of a healthy, happy relationship, regardless of what they may have been modeled in their life or what they've experienced thus far. And so we love to allow the students to choose these bracelets, and then we spend some time. One of just the things that I love to do personally is spend some time allowing the students to kind of proclaim these affirmations. And so they go to the board, they write it down, they sign their name with that. And throughout the day, as the classes continue, we kind of create this graffiti board of all of these students just really empowered, in a sense, to go out and create for themselves a healthy dynamic within their dating relationships. And one of our favorite things is that these relationships double as a resource. And so on the inside of the bracelets, it actually has our hotline number. And so it gives them the ability to have with them at all times a place that they can go and a safe space where they can begin healing, should it be, or maybe they have a friend or a relative that needs our services. And so We are all about providing these students with resources all throughout the week, and this is just a great way to end on a high note and to end our time together. It's just one of my favorite things. And so, yeah, that's a little bit in a nutshell about what we do spending the week with these kiddos. It's just a joy to come out of those conversations with the students having not only the information they need, but they feel really equipped to make adjustments in their own relationships or create new ones moving forward. And so I believe we're just doing the best we can to, again, be the front line so that these students don't need our direct client services later in their lives. And that's truly our heart and mission. So Jeff, I'll let you take it back.
Tiffany, thank you so much for sharing that overview for us. And so what I'd like to do is just go through some additional things about our teen dating violence curriculum. First of all, in terms of how we get into the schools that we serve. And so Rebecca, if you want to advance to the next slide. Happily, here in Texas, our Texas Education Code is written in such a way that there are dating violence policies that schools must adhere to. So schools must develop a policy for dating violence and how they will respond to incidents of dating violence. But written into that as well, too, is the requirement that schools need to provide training and awareness education for students on relationships, healthy patterns of relationship behaviors and unhealthy patterns of relationship behaviors. And so initially what we would do when we would reach out to schools, sending letters to principals and counselors, Rebecca, if you want to advance to the next slide, we would make much of that, that we would put in our letters that according to our Texas Education Code, this is required. And so we just would love to come alongside you in the work that you're doing and assist you in providing that awareness education for your students. Now, happily, what's happened for us is as we've developed those relationships with our schools over the years, we really haven't had to rely as much upon the written Texas Education Code. They've seen the value in the programs that we offer, and they're excited to continue to have us back. And even in the midst of a pandemic as well, our schools have been great about reaching out to us, whether it is a virtual presentation that we can do or in classroom presentations as well too. And so we're grateful for the relationships that we've developed. You'll also notice on the screen that we do send out a letter to parents as well too, or I should say that we make available a letter to parents. And so we can provide that to counselors if they would like to send that out to parents so that parents have some information. As you'll notice, the stats from the CDC about how prevalent teen dating violence is. So we're allowing parents to see how prevalent this is and just let them know that their students will be receiving some education in the classroom. Rebecca, if you want to advance to the next slide. What we also do in the classroom to be able to do some of the grant reporting that we do both a pre-survey and a post-survey. So on day one of our presentations, we will allow students to complete a pre-survey that has some content questions, also questioned about if you know someone who is in an abusive relationship, do you know where to go for help, and where would you go for help? So we utilize that at the beginning of the week, at the end of the week, at the end of the 5-day presentation. They'll see that same survey. It gives us a chance to be able to know how clearly we are communicating the content that we believe that's important, but it's also a way for us to be able to monitor some of those important issues for our grantors. We also do provide a teacher survey as well too. So one of the things that we'd love to do is to hear from our teachers as to how effective is the program. Are there some things that you would recommend that we could do differently that would allow us to be more effective or relevant in the classroom? In addition, the student survey, we'll ask students for that post survey at the end of the week, hey, flip that over, give us a rating, 1 to 5. How well do you think we did? Did you enjoy the presentation? What did you like? What did you not like? Are there other topics maybe that you would like us to bring into our presentations that we can add? And so we really we try to do a good job of paying attention to that feedback. Sometimes the feedback we get isn't necessarily appropriate or helpful, but we do get a lot of helpful feedback that really helps us to inform and modify our curriculum for future presentations. All right, if we want to go to the next slide, Rebecca. So again, that was kind of the local effort that went into developing that 5-day lesson plan for teen dating violence prevention curriculum. We were able to, a couple of summers ago, or I should say a year and a half ago, the summer of 2019, we added some new staff members. And we just began to really work well with one another to review what we were doing thus far, but then also think with one another. What are maybe some things that we can do to bring some enhancement to our curriculum, primarily focused on how can we get more student engagement in the presentations that we are giving. And so just trying to think through, you know what, we like what we have, but how can we take what we have and make it even better for that classroom experience? And so as we begin to explore with one another what that might look like, Rebecca, if you want to advance to the next slide, really kind of what our goal was is, again, just greater student engagement. And so this is when we began to reach out to some other curriculums to be able to get some ideas. And so, Rebecca, if you'll go to the next slide, we began to actually look at love notes and what can we utilize from love notes that will help us do what we do. As we began to look at love notes initially, we thought, boy, this is such a great curriculum. We'd love to spend 13 weeks with students working through this. And sadly, we're kind of in a situation where about 5 days or 5 presentations is the most that schools will give. That would be a goal of ours, to be able to have more time with the students that we serve. But again, just looking for some of those activities, you know, what can we do to, again, just provide further engagement, excitement, interest for these students. And so we love the whole concept from Love Notes about the red bead, green bead option when it comes to relationships. So red beads representing an unhealthy relationship choice, green beads representing a healthy relationship choice. We incorporate this on day 1 as we're talking about a wise way to start a relationship. So if you're familiar with this particular exercise, we have a student choose out of a small Tupperware of beads, red beads, green beads, which relationship would you choose for yourself? And every student that we've done this activity with, obviously they're going to choose a green bead. Everybody wants healthy relationships. But then we ask students, that student to close your eyes, now pick a bead. And because we include more red beads than green beads, inevitably they pick out a red bead. And it's just an opportunity for us to say, you know, this is what it's like when you try to speed too quickly into a dating relationship. You really don't take the time to get to know before you go. It's almost as if your eyes are closed. You're not really being able to see what you need to be able to see to know that this is a good relationship match for you. As well, too, we talk to students about kind of resisting that urge to become physically affectionate too quickly. When we become physically affectionate too quickly with someone that we're interested in, maybe just begun dating that person, it's almost like, again, we're closing our eyes and we put ourselves in the position where we risk choosing a red bead instead of a green bead. Rebecca, if you would advance to the next slide. One of our staff members for day 2, as we're talking about red flag behavior in a relationship, we wanted to be able to spend a good amount of time in that presentation focused on the vision of a healthy relationship. So if students can gain a vision for what's healthy, then they're just in a better position to spot what is unhealthy. So one of our staff members had come up with the idea, why don't we encourage students to create a concept map, a way to provide some type of a picture or symbol approach to what healthy relationships look like. And so we love encouraging students to work in smaller groups to come up with a concept map. Tell us, what are some of those things that you've seen in relationships that cause those relationships to be healthy? What makes relationships healthy? And so we're able to engage in that with them. So next slide, Rebecca. We've been able to utilize some of the resources from the One Love Foundation as well too. They've got a great resource called the 10 Signs, both 10 signs of a healthy relationship, 10 signs of an unhealthy relationship, just a way for us to, again, paint that vision of a healthy relationship for students. If you would go to the next slide, Rebecca. Okay, I think we're ready for the next slide, Rebecca. Okay, yeah, very good. As Tiffany had mentioned, we do love to use video elements. There's just something about the attention that students give to videos that really causes the use of videos in our curriculum to be just a powerful engagement tool for them. The folks at One Love have developed a video series called Behind the Post. And really, it's designed to help students think about that maybe what is posted in terms of pictures of a relationship on Instagram, on Snapchat, may not necessarily accurately depict what's going on behind the scenes or behind the post in that relationship. So what we've done on day 2 for the red flags that Tiffany mentioned, manipulation, isolation, control, extreme jealousy, we've used some video clips from that behind the post series to allow students to be able to see what does it actually look like, what does it sound like for these main red flags to happen that would be warning signs that someone is in an abusive relationship. And so again, being able to bring in some of those video elements has really allowed us to kind of amp up, so to speak, student engagement. When the video comes on, they're kind of glued to the screen, so to speak, just knowing that that's kind of the world that they live in, right? It's all on a video screen. And so so that certainly gets their attention. Next slide, Rebecca. We also have loved using the red flag competition. So kind of a family feud style approach is kind of how we've gone to this. We separate the class into 2 teams. We have a representative come up from each team. Each representative has a red flag and a white flag with a question mark on it. We read through the scenarios that Love Notes offers to us for that, and it just creates great discussion with the students. So it's not only fun because there's some competition that's at work, but when we read out a scenario for which maybe it depends, maybe it is red flag behavior, maybe it is that warning sign that someone in an abusive relationship, maybe it's not. And so we have just found that, again, not only does it bring in that fun element, but it really opens up a great space for some good dialogue when, again, the answer is it depends. It depends on the person, depends on the situation. Next slide. When we get to day 3 on the types of abuse, that can be a fairly heavy conversation. So what we like to do, and Rebecca, if you want to go to the next slide for us, what we love to be able to do is kind of end on a hopeful note. We ask students to create an advocacy poster, for example, that they could put in their hallway for a student that may be in an abusive relationship. What could you say to them that would encourage them, that would help them to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that abuse and violence doesn't have to be the last word, that there is always hope regardless of how dark that situation might be. Again, one of our staff members brought this engagement activity to us. If you'll advance to the next slide, Rebecca. Then when it comes to the day that we focus on a safe and healthy way to break up, especially if it's a red flag person, we just love using some of the tips that Love Notes offers in terms of what are some ways to break up, and really what are some of those things that we need to pay attention to if this is a red flag relationship, if this is a relationship where abuse is occurring. What are the fun things that we do with this? Is that we give students scenarios of maybe reasons why they would break up. And then what they do is they create skits that they perform for their fellow classmates, and then their fellow classmates get to analyze, okay, what went really well about that breakup conversation and what went really terrible about that breakup conversation. And one of the things that students connect with is that those breakup conversations can be challenging. It's kind of an awkward moment in the room, and it really causes them to think, okay, yeah, this is something that we have to be intentional about. If you'll go to the next slide, Rebecca. And again, we provide the tips from Love Notes to help students think about how do I stay safe when I'm breaking up with a person that's exhibiting red flag behavior. Rebecca, if you'll go to the next slide for us. One of the engagement pieces that we love to hand out is a trusted adult connection. So using the model that Love Notes offers, we give a trusted adult connection after each presentation, telling students that, you know what, we're in your moment for just, or we're in your lives for just a moment. We want you to connect with those individuals that are those go-to individuals for you to discuss further some of the things that we have talked about in class. Okay, Rebecca, if we will go to the next slide. And I want to be sensitive to our time here. And so we were going to show you a video that we've used on day 2 for red flags. And I think what we'll do at this point is maybe just talk about that so that we don't run out of time in our presentation. One of the great things about doing prevention work here in Texas is we are supported by our friends at the Texas Council on Family Violence. They've given us a lot of great resources to be able to consider. And so, Rebecca, if you'll go to the next slide, I'm actually going to hand things over to Tiffany. I was kind of a little bit ahead of myself on the video element that we're going to use, but we became a little bit concerned about what was going on in terms of the use of digital technology for the purposes of grooming for sexual exploitation. So we went to our partners at the Texas Council on Family Violence looking for some ideas, and then I'm going to turn things over to Tiffany at this point, and she'll share with us what it is that the Texas Council on Family Violence helped us with in terms of an idea.
Yeah, and so definitely what he was saying, I think that students, we began to recognize that we have to stay relevant, and that, you know, they have a digital life and they have a regular life, and that's just kind of the truth of the matter. So we began trying to partner with TCFV to see how can we engage with these students. And so they referred us to another resource, an organization called Love 146, dealing with sex and human trafficking. And so we were able to incorporate some of those elements and some digital safety tips, some things to consider, and some ways that these students can just be really aware when engaging with other people online, what some of that looks like. And so that's been really received well, and a great added component that was just as of recent. We did that here in the last year. So yeah, that's been great to partner with them.
Thank you, Tiffany. Okay, so Rebecca, if we will advance to the next slide. So again, I said I was a little bit ahead of myself. We went to some of the school decision makers for one of the ISDs that we serve, and we were showing them what we do on day 2 with red flags. And we were showing them one of the video elements that we use. We ended up playing that video element out. And again, I wish we had time to be able to show that to you. But what happens at the end of that particular video element, there are these warning signs: manipulation, isolation, control, extreme jealousy. Then it gets to the end of the video, and there is an image of the student who is the victim in this relationship, who shows some bruising on the side of her face. Our counselors, our support services folks for this particular ISD, I was just really kind of concerned about that might be a little bit too intense for some of the students with whom we would engage. And so it was just one of those things. I think it was just a good reminder for us that, you know, maybe the more people that we can include in the conversations about what we're doing in terms of content for the curriculum that we provide, the engagement activities, the better we just position ourselves to make sure that what it is that we're sharing in the classroom certainly has the approval of those decision makers and is being sensitive to the needs of those student populations as well too. And so again, just how much we've benefited from all of these different voices, again, including the voice of the Dibble Institute on helping us think through what are some effective ways to communicate what we would like to communicate. So with that being said, Rebecca, if you'll just maybe advance through the video, so we won't show that particular element at this point. So if we can just move on to the next segment. So that's what we do for high school students. And briefly, what we've done recently for our middle school students, so 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders, we had some of our middle schools that we serve in one of the ISDs, Utley Middle School, Kane Middle School. Some counselors came to us and said, you know, we think that the curriculum that you're sharing with us in terms of teen dating relationships is important, but we're concerned that it may be a little bit intense at times. They were having some conversations with some parents about some things that their students were hearing, and there was just maybe some concern that some of the things that we were talking about were not necessarily most appropriate for that age level. So being sensitive to that, one of the things that we wanted to be able to do is to come up with maybe a way to be able to build a foundation so that we would be able to eventually have those important dating violence conversations in high school. So if you'll go to the next slide, Rebecca. So what we've done is we are now utilizing a social emotional learning curriculum called Social Perspectives from the folks at Too Good for Violence. And one of the things that we love about this, Rebecca, you can advance to the next slide, is that for the 8th grade curriculum, it begins to incorporate dating scenarios. The last lesson in this curriculum is all about what's healthy, what's unhealthy in dating relationships. And so we found that going to this particular curriculum becomes somewhat of a bridge for us. So we can kind of take a step back, maybe be a little less intense, still talk about important relationship elements, and then again, build that foundation so that we can have some good conversations in their high school years. Rebecca, if you'll advance to the next slide for me. And then let me talk about just how great it's been to work with the folks at the Dibble Institute on some of the at-risk teens that we serve. One of the ISDs in which we work, a particular school had come to us looking for several different presentations. We had already done our standard teen dating violence presentations with them, and so we were looking for some additional things that would be of help to these students. And so we immediately turned to Love Notes 3.0 to think about, okay, what would be some additional lessons that we can share with these students that would be of help to them. So Rebecca, if you'll advance to the next slide. And so some of the lessons then that we used from Love Notes 3.0, lesson 3 on my expectations, lesson 4 on attractions and starting relationships, lesson 5, principles of smart relationships. Of course, we love the fact that there was the opportunity to be able to use already developed PowerPoint presentations to be able to teach this material. But one of the things that was super helpful to us, just knowing that we were incorporating some of the Love Notes lessons into what we were already doing with these students, was how the Dibble Institute, how Kay worked with us to be able to utilize some of their worksheets. And so, Rebecca, if you'll go to the next slide, because of the fact that we were only wanting to utilize some of the worksheets that are offered in the workbook, we had just made the request, hey, would it be a possibility for us to use one of the worksheets without necessarily having to buy the entire workbook? And boy, just how wonderful it was to hear from Kay that yes, indeed, we can definitely make that happen. We were able to get permission to make some photocopies of that so that we could take that into the classroom. And again, we've just found that especially with that at-risk population, being able to add the lessons, the activities, the ideas from Love Notes 3.0 really allows us to continue to do some effective work with that student population. So again, how thankful we are for the Love Notes curriculum and the folks at the Dibble Institute that really help us to make that happen in the classroom. Rebecca, if you will advance to the next slide. And so at this point, what we'd like to do is we'd like to open up a poll question. So we've kind of worked through the ideas of our own process for a curriculum evaluation and modification. And so we just have a simple question at this point. So for those of you that are in prevention education management, for those that are prevention education staff, when it comes to evaluating the curriculum that you use and then potentially making some modifications, how do you go about that? So we've got some options here. First of all, do you have an established system of evaluation? So would you say that, yes, we have a standardized approach to how it is that we evaluate, when it is that we evaluate? Or would you say that maybe it's more organic? You only evaluate that curriculum as needed. So maybe a particular scenario pops up for which you need to pivot and it requires some evaluation and modification. Or maybe some of you would say, yeah, we don't really have a process, whether organic or standard, for evaluating what it is that we're doing with our prevention education lessons. And so we'll, I guess, take a moment to let you respond to that, and then we can take a look at the results. And so, excellent. Okay, so one of the things I think that Tiffany and I would love to hear from you, because it looks like we've got a lot of folks that are using an established system of evaluation, is maybe just some more information on what it is that you do. And in this particular moment, I'm not sure if there would be an opportunity for us to be able to hear some examples of what you're doing or how it is that you go about that. But just knowing, as far as Tiffany and I are concerned, I think we certainly have loved the process that we've utilized. That again, that's been a little bit more organic when it comes to evaluation and modification, but maybe recognizing that that maybe a more standardized approach might be even more helpful to us to be as effective as we possibly can be in the classroom. And so maybe with that being said, Rebecca, I know we're kind of coming to the end of our time together, so I want to be sensitive for some question and answer if we have time for that. If we want to go to the next slide, just kind of an encouragement to us all as we think about the work that we are doing, the vital work that we are doing in prevention education. As Tiffany mentioned, hey, we're on the front lines. We're trying to do what we can do so that we're not seeing these students as clients at some point in the future needing services. So keep calm, evaluate on, and let's keep doing this great work that we are doing with one another. So I think, Rebecca, at this point, I'll hand things back over to you, back over to Kay as well, too, if we want to do some question and answer.
Great, thank you, Jeff. This is Kay, and if you have ideas about evaluation, it's great to share them in the question box. I think if you want to talk to us about that. We're going to get you to tell us, not now, but tell us when, we're going to ask you to give us your link to where you buy those bracelets, and we'll put it in our archives of this webinar, and we'll send it out in an email to all of you. Someone asked about teen dating violence hotlines, if they didn't have their own agency hotline. Is there a national hotline, or what is your recommendation on that?
Tiffany, feel free if you want to answer that. I've been doing a lot of talking, so let's hear from you if you're okay with that.
No worries at all. You know, I'm not actually sure if there is a specific national teen hotline. I know that there's obviously the domestic violence, you know, national hotline that I think that anyone has the ability to use. So I might just advise that you utilize that. We do advise our teens that they can call into our personal local hotline. So that's the number that we provide for them.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Good to get to know what's available in your community, because it could be a United Way. I mean, it could be many things. So what are some good resources for raising awareness around grooming?
Go ahead, Jeff.
You know, I think for us, it is that opportunity as we're thinking about different types of abuse in relationships, just to be able to get that conversation going. And so one of the elements that we do use that we didn't talk about, there is a video as well too that Love 146 has produced that is actually pretty relevant. It is a scenario during this COVID-19 pandemic in which there is some stress going on in a student's life. She gets kind of this random message from someone, and things develop to the point where this person within just a couple of days asks the individual to meet somewhere outside of that person's house. And so I think for us, it's just trying to utilize that classroom time, since we're already talking about the nature of sexual abuse, that really has become the window, the opportunity for us to be able to start that conversation. Obviously, we'd love to be able to do more, but in terms of the programming that we already have in place, at this point right now, it's just kind of beginning to get the conversation started, bringing some awareness by utilizing some of the tips that Tiffany mentioned, but also some video elements as well too.
Great. What have you seen the videos about selective attention? It might be an indirect way to show young people how they might become too focused on looks or other characteristics of a partner while overlooking red flags. Anything about that?
That's a great suggestion. I'm not sure that we've necessarily talked, Tiffany and I, about that particular element, but yeah, but that's a great suggestion. That would definitely be something worth pursuing.
Yeah, and incorporating the One Love, the Behind the Post series, we do talk a lot about how there's this influence that social media can have to really portray the wrong idea when it comes to, you know, what a relationship online, we're seeing the best and the highlight reel of somebody's situation, how that can put pressure on teens as well to maybe overlook the red flags. So that Behind the Post has been a great resource for us as well in terms of that idea.
Great. Tiffany, Nancy likes your whiteboard in the background. Okay, I think that's it. Except to say that today is, this year's teen dating violence theme is showing their worth. So you guys fit into that incredibly well. So we're so excited to have you there. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about wrap this up. So thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Jeff. You have our vast appreciation. So Rebecca, thank you for joining us. Many of you have asked if these are going to be archived, and yes, the recording will be archived on our website. If you go next week under free resources, webinars, you'll be able to find it and share it with others on your team. And you have my email and Rebecca's emails should you need anything. Tiffany keeps trying to go away. It's okay, Tiffany. Okay, next slide. Next week. So this is about scenario planning. And those of you who are, especially in management, might want to attend this. It's with people from Project Evident, and will help us all, you know, what happens when something's, you know, there's things outside our control, and how do we plan for that, and how do we get through these choppy waters. So I really appreciate you all being here. If we haven't answered your questions, we'll be sure and loop back to you. Please join our newsletter. There's lots of information in there every month. We're on all the normal channels. We'd love to have you like us and friend us and all those kind of good things. So thank you so much for attending today, and I look forward to seeing you in March. Take good care. Bye-bye.